Good morning, and welcome to UCA Sunday Service. My name is Hugh Wynn, member of the Board of Trustees. While today is officially Father's Day, I want to take a little bit of a different spin on it and acknowledge the fathers, father-like figures, parent-like figures, as well as adults and grown-ups who play a guiding, mentoring, and supporting role with the people in their lives, and as well as in our communities. Thank you for everything that you do. This month's theme is also play, so I'd like to encourage all of you, as you can, to take the time to play, however you define it. Be it playing cards, board games, video games, going outside, playing with family or friends, or letting your mind play by reading a nice book. I know the past year and a half has been difficult for many, and playing is often a good way to recharge. On a somewhat related note, it's been nice for me to see many of you at UCA's in-person events, and I'm sure many of you also share that sentiment. There will be future in-person events, so please keep an eye out for that information in Connections. Connections also has information on ways for you to engage with the community throughout the week, so please be on the lookout. After today's service, please join us for fellowship. You'll find information for that again in Connections, as well as the email you received this morning. And there's information on it in the chat window to the side of today's screen. So whether this is your first time with us or your 100th time with us, please know that everyone is welcome at UCA. Thank you.
I call us to worship this morning with the humility of a beginner's mind, a poem by the Reverend Roy Reynolds. Beginner's mind. Once we enter the aperture of openness, we dwell as beginner's mind. Once we enter the aperture of openness, we don't know whether we will be drawn deeper into the currents of mystery or morphed into unimagined changes, surprised by participating in inclusion's swirling momentum, or whether we might even be lifted by our own unapologetic courage. Who knows what comes on the other side of awakening to the newness of now? One thing we do know, that once we enter the aperture of openness, it will be surprisingly different. May we muster the humility to serve those wise waters of new beginnings. May we dive into the openness and be what becomes. But come, let us worship together in the name of all that is holy. As we enter into sacred time, I invite you to join me in the spirit of lighting our chalice. Perhaps you too may care to light a chalice candle at home so that you may feel the physical warmth of our presence. We gather together as a community of memory and hope to celebrate life and its infinite possibilities for love. We light this chalice as a symbol of the light within every human heart. May our individual sparks meet and merge, bringing both light and warmth to the world.
Good morning, friends. Welcome to our time for story, our time for all ages. I am here in the sanctuary with our Mistress of Music, Sophia, and we're going to tell you a little story together. This is a story that I got from that wonderful website I've told you all about, Free Stories for Kids by Pablos Christian. And this is a story about our friend, Pinta. Pinta was a young boy who was taking a class in school, like all young boys are, and he had an art project due. He was supposed to draw a picture of something that he enjoyed. However, the one thing Pinta did not enjoy was drawing. So he puts his pen to the paper and he just starts squiggling. And eventually his squiggle becomes a circle. And he looks at the circle and he thinks, maybe it's a person. So he draws a line straight down. And he looks at that and he goes, well, that's not very good. And that's when Pinta hears a voice that says, well, of course it's not very good. You haven't given me eyes yet. And Pinta stares at the paper. His drawing was talking to him, which was odd, because he hadn't drawn a mouth yet. And the drawing says, could you please give me some eyes? So Pinta drew 2 quick circles, and he had eyes. And the drawing was like, oh, that's much, much better. I really appreciate that. But do you call this a head? I mean, look at all these squiggles and bumps I have. I think you could do better. So what I want you to do is flip that pencil around and use that eraser and just erase that line of my head. Pinta erased that line, and he tried to draw another circle, a little neater this time. And the drawing said, oh, that's much better. And Pinta's like, so how can you talk to me? How is this happening? And the drawing said to him, look, Pinta, I can see you're not having a good time drawing this picture. So I think what you need is someone to coach you along a little bit. So that's why I'm here. The first thing I'm going to ask you to do, since you gave me these eyes, is can you give me a mouth? So Pinta drew this small little line for a mouth. And the drawing's like, do you think I have a tiny mouth? Do I seem like a guy with a tiny mouth? Let's give me a great big smile, Pinta. And he drew. Big line across, connecting, beautiful smile. The drawing said, how about some legs? So Pinta drew a couple of lines down for legs. And Pinta could see the drawing walking around the page. This is nice. I like this. Some arms would be good, though. So Pinta drew a couple of arms. The drawing said, oh, this is much, much better. But I noticed that my right arm is a little shorter than my left. Can you redo that right arm for me? Just flip that pencil around again. And as Pinta was erasing, the drawing goes, it tickles. And Pinta drew a new right arm that matched the left. The drawing coached Pinta through the rest of the assignment. Houses and trees. The schoolyard was in the background. Drawing encouraged Pinta to paint it red, even though the school was actually gray. Red's a much better color for a school, the drawing said. Then Pinta started to notice something. When he had started this assignment, he was frowning. He didn't want to draw. He wasn't just not frowning now. Pinta was smiling. And he said, oh my gosh, this is fun. And the drawing said to Pinta, this is the thing. Sometimes we don't think we do things well. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's just not our thing. But instead of just thinking, I don't like this, instead of thinking, this needs to be perfect, maybe it's best to just enjoy the process. To remember to smile. To remember to use all of our colors. To remember that it doesn't need to be what others want it to be. It just needs to be good enough for us. We just need to like it for what it is. When Pinta turned in his assignment, he got an A. It wasn't the best drawing in the class by any stretch of the imagination. Sally had the best drawing again. But Pinta didn't mind. Pinta just loved his drawing for what it was. And Pinta found himself drawing a lot more often. And every time he would put a pen to paper, he would hear that voice in his head again. He would think of his little drawing friend. And he would just sit back and enjoy.
I invite you to join me in supporting our new Social Justice Projects Fund. Starting this Sunday and continuing through the month of June, 70% of our weekly offering will go towards our new UUCA Social Justice Projects Fund. Having this ready fund of cash on hand will enable us to support the smaller and immediate needs of the different social justice groups in the Arlington area. like for instance buying sandwich supplies for the AFAC food program, to be able to buy those supplies quickly when the need arises. The remaining 30% of our offering will go towards the continuing program needs of our church. We of course have many ways to give. Please look into your Connections newsletter for the details. But come, let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for those who share their gifts with us, for we are enriched by their giving. And let us be grateful even for our needs, so that we may learn from the generosity of others.
Please join me in the spirit of meditation and of prayer. Spirit of laughter, source of humor and of heart, font of ever-bubbling joy. So often we think of you wistfully and half-heartedly. May we welcome these feelings and fully appreciate the depth of what they have to offer. Spirit of play, which comes to us, which calls us to learn. That playful babble as an infant, mimicking our caretakers. Those early childhood playground games, teaching us how to interact, how to be kind, how to strive, and how to take loss with a good heart. May we remember these lessons that playfulness teaches, that playfulness engages, that playfulness connects us together. Spirit of laughter that allows us to see joy in the absurd. May we remember that new perspectives can challenge us and seem funny. But may we remember that those new perspectives can teach us as well. That just because something is different does not mean to be scared of it or to push it down, but to celebrate and to revel in its uniqueness. And spirit of joy, come into everything we do. May we find beauty and happiness and acceptance in just the feeling of welcomeness in the small things. May we relish in the delight of others. May we find triumph on this small piece of earth on which we trod. May we find things to love unabashedly. Spirit of life, the sun is high. It is time to play. It is time to enjoy our moments in the warmth and those beautiful starlit moments, to find joy in the fireflies in the dark. May we take a beat, find something beautiful, and laugh. May it be so. So I have a complicated relationship with the song Send in the Clowns. It's one of those songs that seems to me is the epitome of that cheesy, easy listening period in the 70s. That was just a little heavy-handed. It's a song that is almost a punchline, a parody of itself. It's hard to do it and get it to come off well and sincerely. So kudos to Jay and Naomi Birkenbelt for their wonderful rendition of making that song sound good. That's a feat. But despite all of its caricatureness, if I can create a word, there is a very special place in my heart for that song. You see, that was the song that was always used by the clown ministry troupe in my old Lutheran church. Back in the 80s, they had a clown ministry troupe called Clowns for Christ, I kid you not. And they would often do skits and do things with part of the elementary school that was attached to the church. The leader of this troupe, Bob Engel, he would start off by explaining to the kids a little bit about clowns and clown ministry. And he would do this in his normal street clothes, usually a polo shirt and jeans, sneakers. And then after he finished his explanation, he would go to this little boombox tape player, press the button, and then out from it would come Judy Collins's Send in the Clowns. And while that played, he would sit down at a little table and fully put on his clown makeup and clown outfit. And it was this quiet, simple, beautiful transformation. And it always transfixed me to see that. Partly because of just the simple beauty of this action. But part of me was also just stunned that he could so cleanly and beautifully put on his clown makeup and outfit in 4 minutes, the duration of that song, when it took me the better part of half an hour. Yes, that's right. I was a part of this wonderful clown ministry troupe all the way back when I was 15 years old. Now, I know this is probably not a surprise to any of you, my clown past. Many of you know that I can juggle, something I did not learn while I was a clown. Many of you know that I have a history in improvisational theater, so clowning just seems to be like the next logical step. Some of you may not know that I can also do animal balloons, a secret that I have kept hidden from most of you because I was scared that I might be asked to pull it out in the most inopportune of situations. I have kept those animal balloons in my office, though, just in case. And it's happened a few times. We've had a couple children who've been bored in the office suite waiting for their parents to get through with the meeting. I've used them to keep them entertained for just a little bit. So I have this former life in a clown, and right now is when normally Marianne would show you this picture right here of what I looked like as a clown. I have this beautiful little 4x6 that I keep up on my wall of me and my clown outfit. It's the only picture in existence. However, it's been packed away, so I'm going to need to describe to you the silliness that was me in my clown outfit. The outfit itself was a overly large suit that my mother had made for me, and it was big swatches of primary colored cloth, yellow and red, and the back was half blue and green, and overlarge pants that needed suspenders, which were of course rainbow suspenders in order to keep them up. I had, of course, the white face with the huge red mouth, no beard at the time, and a large bulbous plastic nose that I would wear. I had simple blue lines coming from the eyes and a rainbow on the cheek, for my clown's name was Rainbow. Not for the outfit or the suspenders or even the rainbow on my cheek, no. It was for the large rainbow afro that I wore. I am sure many of you are able to picture this with complete clarity as we speak. So usually when I would confess to people that I was part of a clown ministry troupe in high school, they are shocked. Now, the shock does not come from me being a clown. In fact, many people take that as a given, that there was a clown in my past at some point. But what gives most people pause is the fact that the words clown and ministry are right next to each other. Two words that most people have never heard in the same sentence, let alone as one being used as a descriptor for the other. After I say the words clown ministry, there is a pause in the air, ever so brief, followed by, what was that? Or something like, hold up, how does that work? The most common one I would get is, did I hear that right? Clown ministry? So it's something that people have trouble accepting, that those two could be together. And I could spend my next 15 minutes or 2 hours, if I really wanted you, telling you all the things I learned about the high Christology of clowns, how we were taught about the Trinity using juggling, or how the act of blowing up animal balloons is reminiscent of the creation story in Genesis. And I'm sure some of these parallels for you would be very interesting for some of you. And most of you would react probably like my daughter reacted the other day when I started to tell her after I got ramped up 5 minutes into it. She kind of rolled her eyes at me and she said, "That's kind of a stretch." That is my daughter. But there is a part of clown ministry which I think we as Unitarian Universalists can appreciate. And that is the aspect of clowns reframing one's thinking. Now, clowns have often been used throughout history to challenge people's assumptions. We all know about the stories of the court jester being the only one who can tell the king the truth that the king does not want to hear. Right? We see this in Shakespeare's As You Like It. The fool in that play, Touchstone, is described by one of the members of royalty as someone who uses his folly like a stalking horse, and under the presentation of that, shoots his wit. The fool is allowed to speak the truth and shoot their wit, because as the fool, they're easily discounted if they are wrong. After all, they're a fool. What does a fool know? But the power in the fool is in the possibility of them being right. Think about it. If they give good advice to the king in front of the whole court, and the king discounts it, the king is now no wiser than a fool if they're wrong. That makes the fool someone we need to take seriously. Because the fact that they are a fool gives us a warning. It's a paradox. The fool is the one you need to take seriously. It's that paradox that challenges us and reminds us always that we need to examine the ideas and not the messenger of them. It's that critical eye. This is a concept that even Paul brings up in his first letter to the Corinthians. He speaks to them of the difficulties of them trying to preach the word to both Jews and Romans at the time. See, the Jews and the Romans are having trouble believing that there is a God, this Jewish God, Jesus, that allowed themselves to die. Why would a God, Jesus, allow themselves to die? What kind of foolish God is that? And Paul writes to his followers, "But God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise, to remind us that the truth comes from places that the wise people discount. The truth is found everywhere." So I guess what I'm really trying to say in all of this is that we need to take foolish things seriously, because we never know what we can learn from them. I'm thinking one of the best examples of wisdom coming from the unexpected places is during our Time for All Ages segments. And I'm thinking especially of those segments that we had when we were doing service in the sanctuary. Many of you recall I would bring those children up. You know how seriously and how foolishly I take Time for All Ages when we are doing it in the sanctuary. I love that part of the service. There is so much wisdom in that moment, and the wisdom does not just come from me. Most of it comes from the children. That's why I invite them up there. That is why I ask them questions. They are not there just for show. They are not there to be cute and ogled at. Yes, they are cute, but that's not why they're there. They are there so that we can all share in their playful perspective, a perspective that can teach us something that we may have missed as adults in our very serious interpretation of the story we just heard. I want them to share their wisdom with us, and I want us to take their playfulness seriously. So many times I have been doing the service and I have asked one of those children a question and I expect answer A and I get something completely different. And that something different is beautiful and wise. And so often I've had people come up to me and say, "I can't believe that this little boy, this little girl said that." And I want us to get to a point where we expect it, where we don't need to say, "Well, out of the mouths of babes." I want us to take what we perceive as kids fooling around seriously. There's another aspect of clowning that I love that I think we could all learn from. And that's in part the origins of the clown. The word clown has Germanic roots. In languages like Swedish and Scandinavian, they have words like kluni, kluns, kloen. And they mean things like a boorish, clumsy person, right? We can see how that would be relative to a clown. Some of them mean like lumps of wood, right? Some people think that clown comes from the Latin colonus, which you might recognize with colonist roots, but meant a farmer, right? Colonus, one who tills the land. And there's a really humble, almost class dynamic to this definition of a clown. I mean, I think of landowners in medieval times referring to their serfs not as the people who work the soil, but as the soil themselves, the clods of dirt, the clod, the clown, the lowest on the social food chain. That's one of the things I think about with clowns. This lowly, common, dirt-like object. And I love that narrative. I love that idea that is where a clown comes from, this idea of commonality, that we all come from the earth, and this humility of being the lowest. I love the idea of clowns having the willingness to do something foolish, to be seen as low in order to help others, to make them laugh, to make them connect, to teach them something they may not have seen before. I love that it's the humility aspect of this, the commonality, that makes it accessible. Probably the most serious thing that our Christian clown troupe ever did while I was a part of this wonderful group was to lead a Sunday service, the entirety of the Sunday service, a Lutheran Sunday service. Now, you have to understand, while this church that I was in did have things like civil union commitment ceremonies and had some liberal agenda, they were liberal religious agenda. They were all smells and bells, right? Very high ritual. And this clown troupe got to do the entire service. I want you to think about that. That means the readings from the gospel. That means helping out with the music. That means the Eucharist, communion. They had clowns do communion. They did everything but the sermon because the clowns in the clown troupe couldn't speak. We did everything with mime. The pastor wanted the sermon to be him, but everything else, all of the ritual aspects were done by clowns. They took their worship seriously and they let a bunch of clowns do it. This was the first worship service that I had taken part in as more than an altar boy who lit candles or took up the offering plate. And I think it's perfect. It's such a Unitarian Universalist moment. Not because it's a little ostentatious and flashy, not because I got to dress up in a wig and grease paint, but because it is a time where the sacred met the lowly and the common, and its sanctity was preserved, if not heightened by that. It reminds me of the will of the people being blessed. This was a Sunday service. I remember some people were very apprehensive about attending and were moved at the end of it. After all, think about it. If 3 clowns can create the sacred, doesn't that mean any of us can? That we don't have to be the minister on the chancel? Aren't we all capable of creating that divine? That is what I loved about the clown ministry, is that it shared those gifts of beauty with everyone. The one thing about clowns that I've loved, and this might speak more of me than to others, but it's this sense of innocence or naivete that a clown has. And I know a lot of people don't see that. Let's face it, clowns have got a bad rap over the last 30 years, thanks to Stephen King and John Wayne Gacy. But usually the image of a clown is someone falling all over themselves again and again, and smiling the entire time. A clown knows that they are imperfect. And they're not only fine with that, they revel in it. They play with it. They show it. They show it to the world, and they say boldly and proudly, I am flawed, and I am clumsy, and yet I paint myself. I paint myself with beautiful colors, not to hide my flaws, but to bring attention to my uniqueness. I enjoy this loud and vibrant self that I give to you. And I invite you in to enjoy it too. And perhaps, if you can appreciate my beauty, if you can love me for my colorful flaws, maybe you can love yourself for all of your beauty and your imperfections, for all of your beautiful imperfections. For me, my ministry has always been about helping people to accept themselves, to love your imperfections, to find ways to make them beautiful, and to be the best version of yourself. And I hope over the last few years that I have been able to show you some of the wisdom that is in play, that is in playfulness, the sage perspective of children during worship. I hope over the last few years that I have challenged your perceptions of when the sacred, or where the sacred or spiritual is found, giving you new perspectives on things you hadn't thought of as holding beauty and truth. Things like snakes or Star Wars. But perhaps the one lesson I want to leave you with is much like a clown. We will trip. We will stumble over and over again throughout our lives. We need to remember that that is part of the journey. Getting things wrong is part of it all. And it will happen again and again and again in our lives, whether it is in our justice work when we fail as allies, in our spiritual work when we fail to question deeply, or in just staying in covenant with each other. We will make mistakes. And instead of feeling a deep shame for not being perfect, I invite you to delight in the fact that you have made mistakes and invite them in as a chance for you to understand how to be better, to lean into your best self. Play with those mistakes. Learn from them. Smile for having the opportunity and the experience to be better. There is no need for shame about your imperfections. You just need to remember and learn the lessons that you are being taught by them along the way. Don't be afraid to play with those aspects. Don't ever forget to take those foolish things seriously. I love you. May it be so. Blessed be.
Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let a dancing song be heard. Play the music, say the words, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Learn to follow, learn to lead. Feel the rhythm, feel the need. To reap the harvest, plant the seed. let it be a dance. Let it be. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Everybody turn and spin. Let your body learn to bend. And like a willow in the wind, let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. A child is born, the old must die. A time for joy, a time to cry. Take it as it passes by. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Morning star comes out at night. Without the dark there is no light. If nothing's wrong, then nothing's right. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let the sun shine. Let it rain. Share the laughter. Bear the pain. And round we go again. Let it be a dance.
June so often feels like a month of transitions with graduations and end-of-year ceremonies, and that is true in church life as well. Here at UUCA, we are preparing to say goodbye to Reverend Walter, who is moving to Worcester, Ohio to serve as settled parish minister at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Wayne County.
Yeah, Reverend Walter's been a real source of grounding and consistency for us over the last 2.5 years. He's offered his love and compassion, and he's told us wonderful stories with all those special voices. And he's been a great cheerleader for the rest of the staff during a lot of transition, and he's supported the whole community. And of course, he's been an advocate for social justice, working with our social justice ministries team to develop a new and inclusive process for the Share the Plate, as well as preaching on justice issues and inspiring us to action.
Absolutely. He has also been supporting the senior minister even when the person in that role changed. I know that Reverend Teresa truly treasured her time with Reverend Walter, and yet as soon as I arrived, it was clear that Reverend Walter was going to be in my corner, welcoming me and sharing his support for my ministry. And that was really quite an incredible gift to receive.
Yeah, and Walter has brought a lot of gifts to us. When we asked the members of the board to share the words that came to mind when they thought of Reverend Walter, they said caring, warm, spiritual, funny, enthusiastic, compassionate, kind, inspiring, and justice-oriented.
And playful, for sure. That is why we want to invite all of you, the whole UUCA community, to a day of play for all ages, to see each other and to celebrate Reverend Walter. Next Saturday, June 26th, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. You'll have a chance to connect personally, to add to an art project for Reverend Walter, and to applaud him as we share a few tokens of appreciation. Please join us to say goodbye in person to Reverend Walter and to have some fun, to celebrate that playful spirit that he so often brings to his ministry.
Now, I really hope you can make it and show Reverend Walter how you feel about his ministry. And Walter, thank you for all the care and the fun that you have brought to us during your years here.
benediction this morning comes from perhaps one of my most favorite clowns, the British actor and comic genius John Cleese. He says the very essence of playfulness is an openness to anything that may happen, a feeling that whatever happens, it's okay. You're either free to play or you're not. May you never forget the openness that comes with the playful heart. May you be ready to receive laughter and humor long and deep, and may you revel in your imperfections. May you know that you are beautiful for who you are, and that every mistake, every foolish encounter is an opportunity to learn and to live and to love. Never forget to play. May it be so.